Picture this. You're an ancient human in a colony of your own, and there are rivals across the horizon. You need to create a feeling of unity as well as create a feeling of hate towards those that might be coming for you. How do you do that? Is there an easy way to do that? Pretty much so. The easiest would be say that the people across the hill are going to come and eat you. Eat everyone you know, eat everyone in your tribe, eat everyone you've ever known. Unless you do something else about it. That was the essence of why cannibalism is even a thing today. So, we're gonna jump into the cannibalism stories with one very prominent story, and that involves Mr. Christopher Columbus. Now, we all have heard of the stories, we all know a lot about Columbus itself. Nothing new to be added there. What is needed to be added is this. He was under strict guidelines by the Queen. He has to be completely respectful as well as peaceful unless he encountered cannibals. That was the only scenario in which he was allowed to use deadly force. When Columbus landed in the New World and he came across indigenous people, he was very happy with the way they were approaching him. He was very satisfied with the structures they had in place. He knew that they were a civilized group. There were no cannibals there. The main objective of this venture was to find India. That is known now because of all the gold, of course. But when Columbus found out that he did not find any gold, the only other asset that he could take back to the kingdom then was what? Labor. And back in the day, labor was slave labor. You would capture people, enslave them into doing your dirty bidding, and that's about it. Take them, uproot them from their own land, take them back to your kingdom, and force them to death. Work them till they can't move no more. Very common in the old world. Upsetting, nevertheless. When Columbus found out that there was no priceless jewelry, no gold that he could salvage by robbing these indigenous people, he decided to declare them as cannibals. He declared them as cannibals and then began the no rights, land grabs, enslavement. Typical. For when you can't find what you're looking for, enslave the people that you come across who treat you well when you come across them. Nice. Weird how ethics did not play a role in the world of an explorer who believed that he was bringing the world together. Weird. But cannibalism doesn't just start there. As I told you guys in the last episode, which was the first episode of this series, that if you haven't checked that out, I would urge you to look into the whole playlist. But I informed you guys that research was the name of the game. And I'm not someone to shy away from the fact that I do a lot of it. A lot of research went into every single episode that you guys are seeing. So, I would appreciate if you don't mind me rechecking my facts. I don't want to just riff off the top of my head with this one. Now, the initial onset of cannibalism was glorified with ancient European royals. They would make it a ritual. It was ritualistic cannibalism at that point in time. They wanted to make it look like it was something that royal blood did. It was something exquisite. Something that the common man could never ever get near. Ritualistic. I'm sure that 90% of you guys watching would be aware of the fact that the royal families throughout the globe were susceptible to most of the genetic disorders that were existing. Why? Because of inbreeding, because of so-called ritualistic cannibalism. All of this was their downfall, not their rise. Until date, you see royals with rare conditions because of this. Ancient human ancestors prior to that. Now there's this overlapping period in which Neanderthals ate humans, humans ate Neanderthals. It was both ways, not just one. Popular belief says that Neanderthals would on occasion consume humans more than humans would consume Neanderthals. But that's balanced out. Turns out that there were certain human ancestors who preferred human meat rather than local food resource that was available to them. As a matter of fact, there are tribes that have evolved genetic receptors, certain alterations in their genomes that helps them for digesting human flesh. Takes away the prions. Imagine the trial and error that went into play. Imagine natural selection that came into play. When you're talking about someone who developed through genetics the ability to digest human flesh. Interesting. But the second half of this episode is based entirely on one thing. That most of the cannibalism that we have observed to date was forced. How? We're going to get to that. Examples of that would be the first permanent British colony that was formed in the New World. It was formed in 1607, and 2 years later, 1608 to 1610, it faced starvation to the point in which 3/4 of the population that was there died. To the point in which there was evidence found that a 14-year-old girl had been consumed. That a skull was cracked open and her brains were scooped out and cooked. Either cooked or consumed. That can't be dictated. But the fact that it was humanly done by her own colony men. Survival. It takes over this primal instinct that's hardwired into all of us. You never know what you might be capable of when it comes to survival. Albinos in Africa, till date, they are hunted. Humans are hunted to gather their bones and their flesh and their body parts for magic recipes, for voodoo. All of this is the reality that we are living in today. It is not some far-fetched olden time that I'm talking about now. This is modern day. This is 2020. This is still going on. As a matter of fact, in New Guinea, it's turned into a culture. People do this and write it off as cultural. As late as a report that was made on this in 2012 went out to declare that there was cultural cannibalism in New Guinea. People had their own reasons back in the day. Consumption of humans, consumption of rivals to intimidate other tribes, to intimidate other people who might be getting the wrong idea about trying to loot your tribe, trying to loot your own family. Cannibalism was used to send a message in some cases. In some cases, it turned into a bad habit. It turned into a fetish, a need to consume human flesh. I'm sure you've all heard of the tales of Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sure we've all seen the movie Silence of the Lambs. It is something that has been acknowledged for a long, long time. This is nothing new. Shocking, still, nevertheless. Finally, we would get into one of the biggest cases of forced cannibalism. Soviet Union, 1933. Stalin's regime. The Red Army. So powerful, in fact, that they implemented a starvation epidemic, you would say, on Ukraine. All of Ukraine. The worst famine ever in Ukraine was enforced upon them. Not by anything they did to their country or their economy on their own, but because of the mad will of a Russian dictator. To the point in which there were anti-cannibal parties hunt parties that had to be made in Ukraine. People would go out in groups to find these others who would have either eaten their own family members or their neighbors, or found someone on the streets looking for food, grabbed him, killed him, cooked him, and ate him. Stories that became so prevalent that a special task force had to be created for it. What does that have to say about how natural an order this can turn into if enforced? The fact of the matter is that cannibalism is something that has always been there. It's always going to be there in human history. The fact of the matter is that every shipwreck case you hear of, every lost on an island, every aircraft crashed and survivors didn't have an option but to turn to cannibalism. Surviving without any resources around you will make you do what is needed to survive. Even though you might not be aware that by consuming certain human organs, certain human brains, you're prone to get one of the oldest forms and most dangerous forms of diseases that is caused by prions. You start trembling and you end in death. An innocent little name. Kuru. Kuru. Damn. The only thing that we can take away from this is the fact that humanity shall prevail no matter what. No matter how suppressive things might get, when survival comes into play, all bets are off. Even cannibalism. See you guys in the next one. Take care.